On her first day at school, a transfer student was dragged to the back of the classroom by her classmates. Sandy's skirt was pulled up, exposing her thighs. Sandy was a little scared. She thought she was going to be bullied, but the three girls just rolled up her skirt. So that's how it is. Sandy smiled back. The four of them became friends. Nicknamed the F4. F meant flowers. They often hide out in the bathroom to do their makeup. Everyone has an eyelash curler. After having flaming red lips and curled hair, then they went out and met their classmates. As she got taller, her skirts got shorter, and she left her studies behind. Then Sandy got into the worst class in high school. The teacher was teaching about history, and they were off stage, fixing their makeup and gossiping. The teacher was outspoken, calling them a bunch of useless trash. They don't react to the teacher's direct insults. They wore heavy makeup during the day, drinking and clubbing at night. They still did what they wanted. All the girls in this class were wearing makeup in class. The teacher suddenly began checking everyone's backpacks. A carton of cigarettes was found in Sandy's bag. This was a serious violation of school rules. The school offered to let Sandy stay in school if she named the students who smoked with her, so that Sasha can continue to go to school. But Sandy was righteous. She refused to say anything. She refused to be a traitor to her friendship. When her mom arrived and found out what happened, not only did she not blame her, but she praised her daughter for being a good person. She blamed the school for leading the students to betray their friends. For their own benefit, the school issued a suspension to Sandy. When they went back home, her dad was even more disappointed in Sandy. Her dad only had faith in his brother playing baseball. In order to keep Sandy continuing to study, Mom found a cram school, hoping Sandy would get into a good university. When Mr. Jones opened the door to greet her, she was momentarily stunned by the scene before her. Mr. Jones had never seen a student dressed like that before. Black leather boots, super short pants, leopard print crop top, and a wave perm. And she was just a sophomore girl. Mr. Jones complimented Sandy on her fashionable outfit and welcomed her. Sandy had never been treated like this before. She bowed in return. As a first acquaintance, Mr. Jones took out the elementary test questions. He wanted to know Sandy's other ideas, besides wearing a sexy dress. As expected, her answers were followed with big mistake marks. It was scored 0 without a doubt. Mr. Jones, however, put aside right and wrong and praised her for her complete paper. There were complete answers on the test paper, and Sandy had a good attitude. This made Sandy, who had never been praised before, overjoyed. Then, she was asked to set a target college. She smiled and refused. She had no confidence in her studies. Mr. Jones told Sandy that Keio University, one of the top universities in Japan, was full of handsome men. Sandy immediately set a goal. When she got home, Sandy told her family, who didn't believe she'd get in. Have you ever seen a student who only scored 5 points on a test? Sandy took the test again. This time, she only scored 5 points. She had no foundation in knowledge and common sense. Mr. Jones asked her to draw a map of Japan. She summarized it in a circle. She couldn't even tell north, south, east, or west. She had to be taught by her sister, who was in elementary school. Sandy's only knowledge of history was in the form of jokes. Sandy even believed in Santa Claus and Ultraman, just because she'd seen them on TV. When she went back home, her dad was cynical about Sandy's efforts. He thought it was impossible for Sandy to go to university if she was being lazy every day, and he said he wouldn't pay for her tuition fee. He thought investing in Sandy was the same as being tricked. The only person their family could count on was her brother. After the cynicism, he only took his son to eat barbecue alone. Now Sandy vowed to impress her father by getting into the university. The teachers and girls really knew how to play. They made a game of removing the makeup. If someone answered a question wrong, he had to remove one part of makeup. Mr. Jones bet on a photo of himself when he was young, and said he used to have crazy hair. If Sandy could finish all the English from middle school in the summer, he'd show them the photo. Sandy was interested and started studying like crazy. When F4 went to the karaoke, Sandy still held the pen in her hand. When she went home and faced her father's noisy drinking game, she even studied behind closed doors without being disturbed. This time, she finally got a perfect score. The teacher agreed to bring out his own photos and told his own story. He used to be someone who didn't really dig studying, but then he realized he could actually help out a bunch of kids who weren't into it either. That's when he felt like he had a real purpose, you know. Plus, he wanted to make sure he didn't let down the head of the club he was fighting alongside. So, he stuck with it. Sandy's busy schedule with school and cram school made it impossible for her to concentrate on the classroom. The girl who wore makeup in class every day was trying to get into a prestigious Japanese university. The teacher mocked Sandy. If you don't want to study, I'll send you to a part-time job. How can you get into a prestigious university? The two made a bed in class. If Sandy got in, the teacher would go around the school, naked and upside down. But if Sandy didn't get in, she'd run around the school with her breasts exposed. Sandy slapped the table and stood up on the podium, swearing that she would pass the exam. She didn't realize the teacher was playing a trick. The teacher approached Mr. Jones and advised him not to do anything for the sake of money. The teacher pointed out that out of 700,000 students, Sandy had to be over 670,000 to get in. The teacher thought the losers were hopeless, but Mr. Jones didn't.
ダメな生徒などいないと思うんです。ダメな指導者がいるだけですよ。
He was full of hope for Sandy. Sandy heard his words. She vowed to pass the exam. Her dad came home and saw thousands of words on the wall, and started to get emotional. He picked up one of them, and stuck it back for his daughter, to speed up Sandy's progress. She had been getting zeros since she was a kid, and now she was trying to get into a prestigious university. Her 3 classes a week had been doubled to 6, and her tuition had doubled. She heard her mom's concerns. She's talking to her sister about taking out a term insurance policy to pay for her tuition. And mom started working several jobs a day. She worked non-stop during the day, and carried goods in the factory at night. Rain or shine, there was never a day off. The next day, Sandy asked Mr. Jones how much it would cost for a 6-day-a-week tuition class. The president handed her an envelope from her mother, repeating what her mother had said.
そのお金の重み。
Sandy had tears in her eyes. She realized how much love was in that thick envelope. When Sandy wanted to meet up with F4 again, but they banned her. Her friends realized that she was focusing on her studies, and promised to play after her exams. Sandy was moved to tears by them. As Sandy had no knowledge of history, Mr. Jones told her to read history comics, to sort out the relationships between the characters. This teacher tried to stand an egg on its head. After hundreds of attempts, he finally succeeded. Mr. Jones used the analogy of an egg. Just because an egg was round didn't mean it could never stand up. Sandy listened to her teacher and regained her confidence. She cut her long, curly hair into a short haircut, and wore her plainest tracksuit. The hot girl look was gone. She studied harder than usual, but she was still frustrated by the results of the mock exams. The results were all E's. This completely undermined Sandy's confidence. She began to question herself, and wanted to give up. She had given up all her social life for half a year to study, but she still couldn't get anywhere. She began to think about it. She was the lowest of the low, actually. Sandy came to the factory where her mother worked in the rain. At this moment, looking at her mother's busy back, all her emotions turned into tears. Back home, Mom looked at the tired Sandy and comforted. It's okay to give up if you're too tired. Just try your best. Mom hugged Sandy and told her childhood stories. Mother's love is great. Sandy was always crying. Her mom was devastated, but when Sandy smiled, it was the most healing moment for her. From then on, she did everything she could to make Sandy happy. Sandy didn't understand why her gentle mother married her dad. Her mom said, "Your dad was kind, always helping others. He also dreamed of going to Keio University and becoming a professional baseball player, and that's his regret. So he imposed his dream on your brother." The next day, as a result of a failure, the younger brother erupted in resentment against his father's years of strict discipline. Sandy followed up and urged his brother not to give up. In the middle of the argument, the brother shouted at Sandy, "You also gave up on the exams and go to the cram school. We're all the same." Sandy wanted to prove herself to her brother. She went to Keio University with her mother. Sandy felt a yearning that she'd never felt before. The students were all studying in the sunshine. Sandy didn't give up so easily, and promised to take a picture of the day she got in. Sandy returned to the cram school and apologized to Mr. Jones, saying she would keep up the good work. She had been getting 0 marks since she was a kid, but now she was woken up. She wanted to attend a prestigious university in Japan. The 4th mock exam was coming up. After the grades came out, Sandy biked all night to prove her efforts to Mr. Jones with her improved grades. She had a 50% chance of getting into Keio University. This was a great encouragement to Sandy. When she came home, her dad was burning baseball gear, and told her brother that he won't force his hobbies on him anymore. Sandy told her family about her results, and told her brother, "I'll stick to my dream. You go and find your own passion too." Mom looked at the results report over and over again and burst into tears. Dad stood in disbelief with his mouth wide open. The next day, in order to make Sandy's admission more secure, Mr. Jones made 3 choices. First, the Faculty of Literature at Keio University. Second, Keio University's General Studies Department. The exams finally came, but it was snowing heavily that day. It was snowing on the day of her important college entrance exam, so she couldn't make it to the testing center. Dad decided to take his daughter there. On the way, he tried to break the awkwardness. He apologized to Sandy, reviewed his guilt towards her and her mom, and promised to pay for her tuition. Dad said, "You are now the hope of our family, but Sandy's grievances won't be resolved so quickly. You've been ignoring me for so many years.
何年も何年もほったらかしだったくせに。
Dad was speechless. By then, Dad suddenly stopped, grabbed his tools and got out of the car. He went to help a passerby who was stuck in the snow. Watching her dad clearing the snow with a shovel, Sandy's impression of her dad's meanness changed. As Mom said, Dad was a kind man. Luckily, she made it to the exam. With her dad shouting cheers, Sandy smiled as she walked into the exam room. Never drink cold coffee before an exam. Sandy drank the lucky coffee from her teacher before the exam, but she got a bad stomach. During the exam, Sandy kept running to the toilet and didn't do well in the literature area, which she was good at. On the second day, she took the KO University General Policy exam, which she was not good at. Remembering her teacher's advice, Sandy tried all her best. At the same time, her teacher was also praying for her. The exam was finally over. Sandy walked out of the exam room relieved. A few days later, the results came out. Sandy rushed to see Mr. Jones. Her face was gloomy. Did she fail the exam? Mr. Jones was about to cry, and Sandy really cried. It looked like she didn't pass the exam. In the next moment, she exclaimed, "I passed the exam." She ran over and gave him a big hug, exclaiming, "I got in. That's great." It turned out that Sandy didn't get into the Faculty of Literature, but she was accepted into the General Studies department. All her hard work was not in vain. On the day they returned to school, the teacher took nude photos in the field as promised. Sandy and her father made up. Sandy's wonderful life had just begun. This movie is called Flying Colors. It seems that everyone has the chance to become a genius and create miracles, and there's a real-life prototype of Sandy. It's absolutely inspirational. This is a good movie. I recommend watching the full movie. Don't forget to like and subscribe.